High School of the Dead is one of those animes that is still stuck to my head to this day, and it's probably due to the fact that this is probably the only series that I've watched that has dealt with the zombie apocalypse plotline. I don't see too many animes do this kind of plotline where they involve the zombie apocalypse. So I remember when I first saw this series, I was kind of amazed that there was even an anime that did do the zombie apocalypse because, like I said, not many animes did that, and to this day, there's still not a whole lot of animes that do the zombie apocalypse. Maybe in the future we will see these kind of animes come out, but until then, I'm pretty sure High School of the Dead is probably the only one that I know that does do the zombie apocalypse plot. But before we get into that, I need to talk about the thing that I know a lot of people are going to mention, and that is the fan service. Yes, I am fully aware that this series had a lot of fan service. It was kind of interesting seeing how an anime that's mainly supposed to be about zombie apocalypse also managed to fit in a ton of fan service. And I mean a lot. Like, this isn't just a little bit of fan service where there was some scenes that had fan service. No, there was a lot of episodes that had a ton of fan service. Like, that was pretty much the big part of the show, that it had a lot of fan service. Like, out of nowhere you have scenes that, you know, just show a bunch of fan service. And I know for some people that was something that they weren't a huge fan of, and I know that there were some people who just pretty much know this show because of that, because of the fan service, not because of the plot line or the characters or stuff like that. No, it's because of the fan service and how much there was. So I do understand that there were some people who just only know this series because of it, but I wanted to go more deeper because there was a story, there was characters, there was something interesting about the show. It wasn't just fan service, because believe me, if it was just fan service, I would have lost interest in this show in the first couple episodes. Like, I wouldn't have watched the entire season. But because there was some things that were interesting about this show, I decided to continue on, and I did end up watching the entire season plus the OVA that they also had. So today, that's what I want to talk about. I want to talk about the other interesting things that happened in High School of the Dead that wasn't the fan service. There were other things that I also found interesting of this show. So let's just begin as to what this whole story is about. Well, you know, it's a zombie apocalypse show, so obviously it's going to have like the beginning of everything seems normal, but of course I don't know where the zombie outbreak comes and everyone starts turning into zombies. And this is where we meet our main protagonist, Takashi. Now, Takashi is a very interesting protagonist because at the beginning he was shocked there was a zombie apocalypse happening. It felt like it was not something that will happen in real life, but of course that is something that's happening in his world where there is a zombie outbreak. And I did enjoy how he was very quick to adapt. Like, at first there were a few moments where he was hesitant of, you know, killing the zombies, but as time went on and he realized that this zombie outbreak wasn't going to stop, he realized that he had to survive. That was pretty much the number one thing he had to do. He had to survive no matter what, and at that point he realized killing zombies was just something that he has to get used to, and it's something that's going to happen if he wants to survive in this zombie apocalypse world. But it doesn't mean that he was the only character in this series. Obviously there was going to be more characters introduced, like Rei, who was Takashi's ex-girlfriend, but it's very clear that she still has feelings for him, and it's very clear they still have like something going on between them, because, you know, as much as they seem to not really like each other anymore, there's still something going on between them. There's also Takagi, that has probably the worst attitude out of everybody else. Like, she gives attitude to pretty much anybody, and it doesn't matter who you are, because she is going to give you attitude no matter what. Although she does have her tsundere moments as well, so that's also another detail you should know about her. There's also the character Hirano, a nerdy kid who actually knows how to use guns. Yeah, there's a whole backstory with this character. Like, he actually did use guns in the past, and he knows how to use kind of every kind of gun there is, and seems to know a lot about guns than anybody else in the group. And then there is Saiko, who is a common collected one, and overall she has a lot of moments where she's just badass. Like, it's very clear that she knows what she's doing and she knows how to kill zombies left and right. And lastly, there's Shizuka, who was the school nurse of the school, but of course now that the zombie outbreak, that doesn't really matter anymore. But despite being a school nurse, she sometimes has her moments where she's just a complete airhead and has no idea what's going on. She's not the smartest person, that's what I'm trying to say. So you have this entire group that's filled with a bunch of different personalities and different characteristics about one another, but even then there's still something about them that just makes them work. Like, they don't feel out of place. Like, there's not a single character in this group that just feels like they shouldn't belong in this group, because every character plays a really important role in surviving the apocalypse, whether it is because of strength, whether because of how they know how to use weapons, or just simply they know how to use tactics. They all play an important role as to how to survive the zombie apocalypse. I think that's what's really important, because it seems that every character in this group has a purpose and has a way to make sure that they survive the zombie apocalypse no matter what. Obviously there's more characters that are probably more strong stronger and smarter, but still everyone plays a huge role, which I'm kind of glad, because there's not a single character that I feel like, you know, isn't that important, or it's a character that doesn't really contribute much. No, they all have something that they contribute, because each character has something that they're good at that could contribute in pretty much surviving this zombie outbreak, and I really do enjoy that. Another thing that I also enjoy about this series was the fact that they were able to actually give us background information of some of the characters, which I really do appreciate it, because there are some characters that I wanted to know more about what their life was before the zombie outbreak, and you do have some sympathy for these characters because they do have some moments in which they revealed that, you know, they didn't have a great past, but it's very clear they're trying to move on. They're trying to, you know, just do the best they can now, because the past is the past and they can't do anything about it anymore, which I really do appreciate it, because when you give characters, you know, when we learn more about characters and what they were like or what kind of people they are, you actually do care about them, because you want to see them survive, especially with the zombie outbreak that is going on. You want to see these characters survive until the very end. And of course, as the story goes on, we start to realize that it's not just the zombies that the group has to take care of, it's also they have to deal with other people as well, which is the humans. The humans are also a big problem during the zombie outbreak, because it's very clear that humans tend to always want to survive all for themselves. They don't care about other people, as is shown in the series that once the zombie outbreak happened, people started losing control, started freaking out, and started only protecting themselves. They didn't care about what happens to the other people, and if they had to make sacrifices, they will. Like, that's just the reality. When there's a zombie outbreak, some people just don't know how to handle this kind of thing, so they decide to just simply protect only themselves and the people they care about, and just leave the rest of them to die. And that is something that does happen in this series, where we see a group of people, a select group of people, survive or get help from other people, but the rest of the other people, well, they're just, you know, pretty much on their own. They have to survive on their own with no help whatsoever. So that is something that also is something that's very important about the series, is that there is more conflict than just the zombie outbreak. Like, it's very clear that there's going to be more problems in the future that doesn't just involve the zombies. There's also going to be other problems in the near future that they're going to have to deal with, that's not just all about the zombies, which I think could have created a very interesting later on plots of the series, as, you know, we could have probably seen, you know, antagonists and stuff like that. I think the only closest thing we have as an antagonist was a teacher from the school that Takashi was, which his name is Shido, and he had like this belief that only the superior survive. Pretty much the weak just die, and only the people who are left to survive are the people who are better than the other people and who are just more superior than the rest of them. That's kind of his belief, and he actually did influence a group of students because of that belief. So he pretty much created a cult that believes that they are the superior ones and that they are, you know, have the right to survive, and the weak just get killed, and if there's somebody who's just useless or just not worthy, then they have to die. And like I said, that could have been a very interesting antagonist. I would have loved to see what he was willing to do and how he was able to spread these ideas even more. Like, what was he going to do now that he has like this group of people, now that he thinks that, you know, this is like the only way to survive the zombie apocalypse? That would have been very cool to see. But there was also other mysteries that have yet to be solved, like for example, who created the zombie outbreak, like who was responsible for it. There was also the mystery as to what happened to Takashi and the rest of the group's family members and loved ones. Did they ever survive the zombie outbreak, or did they just die and become zombies? We never really got to see that, because I think that was also something that was also playing a huge role in the plot, where they actually did want to see their loved ones again, because of course now that the zombie outbreak happened, they want to figure out if they survived or not, because everyone had somebody they did care about. And that is something that also made this series very interesting. Sadly, this series was left unfinished. And what do I mean by that? Well, there's only 7 volumes in total, and the reason why is because the author of High School of the Dead sadly passed away in 2017, which is really unfortunate, because this series had a lot of potential. Yes, I do understand the fan service was probably still going to be included, but still, it still had an interesting story, it still had an interesting plot, it still had very interesting characters, so it did have potential to be a really good series. But sadly, because the author passed away and because he didn't get to finish his work, this series is left incomplete, which of course is something that a lot of the fans are very sad about, because they did want to see this story go on forward. They did want to see more about High School of the Dead. You know, there was people who wanted a season 2, there was people who wanted the manga to continue, but sadly that's never going to happen. And let me remind you that this series came out in 2010. The anime was made in 2010, and it's already been like 12 years. Like, we're in 2022, it's been 12 years since the anime has had its airing. So it's very clear based on that there's no intentions on bringing this series back. It's very clear there's never going to be a season 2. The manga is not going to continue. the series is just over, like it's done, it's just incomplete, unfortunately. But even then, I'm still happy that I watched this series. Like, I enjoyed season 1 as well as the OVA, so it's not like a series that I didn't like or didn't like care about. No, this is a series that I did enjoy, and while yes, I would have loved to see more of it, I would have loved to see more of the whole zombie outbreak in this world of High School of the Dead and see what else the story had to offer. Unfortunately, that's never going to happen because, like I said, the author is no longer in this world, and when there's a series that hasn't had its original creator or its original author, you don't really know where the series was supposed to go or what the direction the author wanted the series to go, and because of that, that's why this series was left incomplete. But still, I enjoyed watching High School of the Dead, and it's a series that I'm never going to forget about. But yeah, that's pretty much the entire video. Hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time.